Here we go. Guam.
Anyways, we were moving engineer equipment. They were taking it down to the rail yard, and they were going to Pusan. And Pusan, right next to it, is a place called Mason. It's an army depot. That's where my buddy Wimpy.
Oh yeah.
He was down there. So they asked for volunteers to guard the engineer equipment when it was being taken, train guard. So I volunteered. I figured I'd get a chance to see Wimpy when I was down there. So two other guys that I knew, both white guys, they volunteered to be with me on the train guard. So they got us all set up and took us down to the rail yard, and the equipment was all on flat cars, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one was an oil spreader, and everything rode backwards because of the coal cinders from the train. You don't want to get any cinders in your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so they gave us 3 days of rations. He says a day and a half trip, and they gave us 3 days worth of sea rations. And we were off and gone. They hooked us up in the back end of the train, and we're off and gone. And day and a half trip, I figured that couldn't be bad. So we're going along there, and these other two guys are up on the rest of the equipment there, and I was right on the end, and I was sitting on the bumper of the oil spreader and leaning against the radiator, you know, and I had two 30-round bandoliers of 30-round ammunition, and had my carbine with a 30-round clip in it, and I'm sitting there on the bumper leaning against the radiator, and we're bumping along there and going on. And we come through a tunnel. When we come out of that tunnel, it was pitch black in that tunnel. When we come out of that tunnel, you know how they have the concrete abutting us up there. There were 5 riflemen up there shooting at us. And I couldn't figure out what the hell they were shooting at, you know. And I could hear the bullets popping by and stuff, you know. Of course, the train was, you know, rattling and all that shit. So I just sit there and looked at these guys, and of course, the train's moving fast enough that I'm a smaller target all the time, you know. And they aren't up and shooting from their shoulder, they're just firing from the waist. Bullets flying all over the place. I wonder what the hell they shooting at, you know. And after we got down the railway, the 2 other guys come and said, "You see them guys shooting at us?" I says, "You're shitting me, they were shooting at us." I didn't fire a shot, sit there and watch the whole thing. I figured, well, I got a guardian angel right now, you know. So we get down.
So was that the first time you were shot at?
Yeah, because the first group didn't have a chance to shoot at us. We
Right.
cut them down.
Right.
Anyways, we get down the road to this little town called Mokum, and they put us on a spur off there and dropped the 10 carloads off, and they went and left us. So there wasn't anybody there who spoke English for the first day. And then this Korean come by, and he spoke English. He good enough to get by. So they had an RTO, their rail telegraph office. So I asked him if he'd do me a favor because we were running out of food. And we went down to the RTO and sent a message back up to my unit. That's, where we were in Mokum, and we were sidetracked, and we need more food or rations. So no food came. We were there for 9 days. We bought food from the Koreans to eat, get by. We lost a lot of weight. Anyways, by the time we got down there, it was 9 days. But the only thing that really happened there, the Korean Rail Police, KRPs they call them, they would come in the evening and hang around with us, and stuff. And this young boy, Korean boy, was there one day. And he grabbed a cartridge belt, and was gonna run off with it. Mm-hmm. And this KRP guy got him, and he took that belt, and then he was slamming him, beating that kid, beating him. I figured, shit, he's gonna kill him if he keeps it up. So I reached out and caught at the strap and pulled it back away from the cartridge belt. And this KRP guy turned on me and pulled his gun. And one of the guards was with me. He had his carbine leveled on him. He told him, "Don't even think about it." So they left, and the KRPs didn't come back. But anyways, we finally got down to the rail yard, and we'd all three of us had lost some weight, I don't know how much, but we were looking terrible. And we got in the rail yard down there at Pusan, and this sergeant come out, and he says, "I can't get anybody out here till tomorrow, so you guys are gonna have to stay, And it says, "How does that work?" I says, "We're goddamn near starved to death. We need to get some food and stuff." He says, "Well, I can't do nothing about that." So I had the orders for this, so I grabbed him, pulled him over, stuffed him down his shirt. I says, "Now you stay out here and guard the goddamn things. We're going to get something to eat." And he started to pull his pistol, and one of the guys poked him with a carbine. So we left and went down to PX, Post Exchange, and we bought some food and stuff, And then we hopped in. I checked in on to see what Wimpy Beaver was there, and if he was still there, but he wasn't there. They shipped him north a week before. But anyways, I didn't get to see Wimpy, but we got on a train, headed back up to Tegu, and there were some KRPs in there and MPs, military police, Army. So we told them we had to get back up to Tegu, so they set us up there, and we sacked out on the ride back up. And we got back up there, why they were unloading supplies for our battalion. Found the trucker was doing it, asked him if he'd take us back. He took us right back to dropped us off at our tents. So the next morning, a guy come in the tent early and woke me up and says, "The company commander wants to see me right now." So I jumped up and headed over to the command tent. I went in, and the captain says, "Where in the hell have you been?" He says, "We have you down as AWOL. Where have you been?" I says, "Well, they sidetracked us, took us 9 days to get down there." I said, "Why didn't you send us the food? Did you get the message we sent on the RTO?" And he says, "Yeah, they got the message and they sent the food, but it didn't get there." And I told him, thanks a lot. And he told me to get the hell out of there. So, but it was quite an experience. But then we went to Guam, and there was all kinds of buildings there from World War II. You know, in fact, there are still U.S. tanks in the jungle and stuff that had been knocked out and stuff. And it was really good duty. Instead of freezing our ass off, we were in a place that was nice and warm, and it had the ocean water we could swim in. And we could swim at Tumon Bay and Upper Harbor. And it was really, really neat, you know. We worked and like I said, repairing these other buildings and cutting down the jungle around them and stuff from World War II and stuff. And they had an Army hangar from World War II out at what they called Northwest Field. So they wanted to reopen that and everything, but it was all rusted out and everything. So I was part of the crew that was sent out there, and we cut all the tin off the top. Everything was rusted out. We had to use hammers and chisels. You know, and of course it was 80 feet high, and we got there. We used to ride out in the morning in a dump truck, and we had 2 wood benches we could sit in the dump truck, and they had a rope that was about that big around, tied up in the 80 feet high. Down, you could pull stuff up with if you need to. And the guy driving the truck, he used to pull around there, and I'd get on that rope, and I'd pull myself hand over hand all the way up to 80 feet at the top, you know. They all laughed about that, man. When I got done up at the top, then I'd slide back down the rope to the ground to be with the rest of them. We cut all the tin off of it. Then we replaced all the rusted out I-beams and purlings. And I used to get up, there were 2 beams shaped like this, and they were bolted together, and they were on the whole top of the hangar. And I used to get up there and walk from one end to the other, up there at 80 feet high. And this one guy from Texas that was working with us, he had glasses and big, thick, and I says, how in the hell can you walk that thing like that with those glasses on? He says, it don't bother me at all. He says, I can't see any farther in my feet. He walked that thing. But when we got done cutting all the tin off the top and replacing all the rusted out I-beams and purlings and stuff, and we were getting ready to put the tin back on, and I only had 2 weeks left before I was going to be shipped home. Then in the evening, when we come back from that one day, I had 2 weeks left. I went into the barracks, Quonset huts, and the lieutenant that was in charge of us, he come down there, Lieutenant Wilson, and he told me to sit down in my foot locker, and I sat down, and he sat down in another foot locker, and he says, tomorrow morning when we fall off of the work call, he says, yeah, you have to fall off of the work call, and after that, he says, you stay in the barracks, don't go out on the truck, you know, to the hangar. I said, well, why? He says, we were friends. He says he wanted to see me go home. I just had 2 weeks left. I said, well, what about the company commander? A company commander, we served in Korea together too. And he says he wants to see me go home too. So they gave me a pass for 2 weeks.
Nice.
I didn't have to work, just goof off. I could go down to Tumon Bay and swim, and they had an exercise yard down there. I could go down and work out, have some lunch and all that stuff. But all I had to do was goof off for my last 2 weeks.
Tropical vacation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then when I got back, I got orders to go to Fort Baker.
So how long was your term, your first tour? Was it a year? Is that how long you enlisted for, or did you enlist for 2 years?
I enlisted for 3 years. It was 3 years, and I did 4. The reason I extended for a year was I was at Fort Baker, and we had a new first sergeant come in, and I was on the pile driving crew. I was a rigger rigging the captain piling, and we're building the piers. But anyways, they got a new first sergeant in, and the old first sergeant, I happened to be in the mess hall when this new first sergeant come walking down the walkway, and he told all of us in there, that's the new first sergeant. He says, and he's a real asshole. He says he's known him for a number of years, and he says everywhere he goes he picks a fight with somebody and has them put in the stockade and busted, and that's just to show everybody what a badass he is, not to fool with. So I stayed completely away from him. And I come back off a pass one time, and I had a little bit of lipstick on my collar. I didn't see it, my t-shirt. I changed into clothes and fell out for work call. Somebody saw it, and they told him about it. So he called me out of formation and marched me up the orderly room. The only one in the orderly room was the company clerk. He told him to go out and take care of the formation out there, morning formation. So it's just him and me. And he was about that much taller than me and way heavier than me. And he had a bayonet scar that come on it all the way down across here from World War II, from a German soldier. But anyways, he started in on me, started calling me names and all this different stuff, and pushing me around and stuff. And I just ignored him, looked through him like he wasn't there, till he jumped up and bumped me and called me a dirty son of a bitch. That's when I lost it. I hit him hard as I could, knocked him back on the desk. He laughed. He thought he had me. He come after me. And he picked on the wrong guy. I beat his ass all over the orderly room, and then he run outside. And I run out after him, and I didn't even think about the company information there. And I caught up to him, and I kicked him and kicked his feet out from under and dropped him on the ground. I got him by the collar and picked him up, and I beat him unconscious, and I just dropped him on the ground. Then I heard all this whistling and hollering and clapping, and all the company was happier and shit that they saw me beat the crap out of this guy. So a couple of sergeants come down, they put me under house arrest, and they took me up and guarded me all day at the barracks. Company commander was out of town, but he knew about this guy too. So when he come into town that evening, he sent the company clerk down to get me and bring me back up the orderly room two guards brought me back up the other room. He told them to go outside. And it was just the company commander and the company clerk and me. And the company commander said, I want to know what happened. Says, I've heard his side of the story, now I want to hear yours. So I told him what he did to me. You know, he did all that, and then he called me a dirty son of a bitch. I says, that's when I lost it and hit him. And he looked at me and he said, why, that dirty son of a bitch, you know? He knew him.
Mm-hmm.
So he turned to the company clerk and says, what can we do to get him off under the charges? The company clerk had to file the charges. Him and this first sergeant sit down all day and made out all these charges against me and shit. So company commander says, what do we do to get him off from underneath this? So company clerk says, ship him out. That's the only way you can do it. We ship him out of here. He says, I'll file the orders, the charges against him until he's gone, and they won't call him back. So he started looking through my records. He says, you were trained as a cook? I said, yeah. He says, I saw somewhere in my paperwork that they were looking for a cook. So he looked around. He said, will you ship out? I said, yeah, but I don't want to go back to Korea. So anyways, he looked and found that they were wanting a cook in Camp Drake, Japan, right outside of Tokyo. That's just really good duty. So I told him, I says, I'll go for that, you know. So he looked and he says, you don't have enough time. I says, what are you gonna do? He says, you could extend for a year. The company commander asked me if I'd be willing to do that. He says, all the time I spend in the stockade, it would be bad time. I'll have to serve it over anyways. So I said, I'll extend for a year. So they made up the paperwork, and the orders couldn't come through to ship me out till next Friday, next Saturday. So he says, you can leave at midnight Friday. When it turns into Saturday, you can take off on your leave, go home for 30 days and then ship out. So I had two buddies there. He says, don't talk about this. Nobody can talk about this, because if he finds out, he could screw it up. So I had two buddies there, Field Gutierrez and Martinez, and they stuck with me all the time, keep me away from the guy. And I think those were the only two the company commander told. And they stuck to me like glue. And when it come Friday night, well, I packed all my bags and everything, and they had a area where you come into the building where there was a sit, rest, like you could sit. Anyways, I says, let's go down there. So I says, you guys don't have to come with me. So they carried my bag, two bags, my duffel bag and my handbag. And we went down, and there was this sergeant was there waiting on me. So he found out somehow, but it was too late. So I told Martinez and Field Gutierrez that you don't have to be here, you know. Field Gutierrez was a boxing champion. And I said, you don't have to be here. He said, oh yeah, we do. We got a make sure you get out of here. So when it struck 12, they picked the bags up and we went out to my Chevy, and he was right there with us all the way. I said, "You guys don't have to do this." They said, "Open the trunk." I opened the trunk and they put my bags in. I said, "Why did you do this?" He says, "Because they figured I'd kill the son of a bitch before I left, you know." So I was supposed to go to Camp Drake. But when I got up to Fort Lewis, they changed my orders, sent me back into Korea as a fireman. Because I'd been in a forest fire for 9 days up in Northern California. A whole outfit had backfired.
So how long were you at Fort Baker?
I think about 7 months.
And like 3 months on Guam?
On Guam, I was in Korea the first time about 9 months.
Right.
And then I was on Guam for about 8 months. Then I spent the time in Fort Baker and then went back to Korea.
All right. In there.